Keith, you and Bill have known each other for some years. You've worked together on some projects before. What made you feel comfortable and confident that Bill was at a point where he was ready to direct a feature and make it go okay?
You know, the thing about it is, if you know Bill, you know that he is a great storyteller to begin with. And the first thing as a producer you're really looking for from a director or in a director is someone who could tell a story, weave together a story in the right way. The information comes when it's supposed to come, or in an interesting way. Bill is just a great storyteller. So that's the first clue. But the other thing is, you know, you have multiple conversations about film and cinema and story, and you get a good sense of people's salt. And Bill is one of those guys that he just knows everything there is to know about story, and I'm damn proud of him.
When it came to finding department heads on this film, did you reach out to people that you remembered having good experiences with on sets as an actor? How did you choose your crew?
I found myself going brain dead. I couldn't remember anybody that I had worked with. I could remember the last 3 people, and they were all busy. So that was a really frightening part of the process, choosing the crew. I would talk to, Keith would narrow it down to 3 or 4 people, and I would just sort of go with a gut feeling. And it worked.
It worked really, really well. We had a real nice trust and vibe in prep. I knew the line producer instantly we wanted to work with, and I knew right away, as did Bill, that we needed to find somebody that was capable of identifying songwriters and musicians that could submit music from a wide casted net in the indie music scene. So we got a music supervisor that I had worked with before. And then, you know, Tyler and Gary, my co-producers, and I are real photography enthusiasts. And so we basically put Bill on the phone with a lot of really, really fantastic DPs, many of whom are huge fans of his and all of whom wanted to shoot the film. So it was like that, and Bill was able to talk to people, but I think that by and large we made a lot of really good choices.
If you look at the credits, 2 names that pop up a lot, if I'm going to remember them correctly, Simon Stedman and Charlton Pettis.
Well done.
And they're the guys who wrote most of the original songs that Miles Heiser's character wrote and that the band sings.
These guys are amazing. Did you guys like the music? It is really, really difficult to find people that are both talented in the music space and capable of doing what actors do, consuming themselves with the character and writing from that perspective. They would say, no, it's not, but it really is, and you should know them. They have a group called Solid State, but they're really ultimately musicians that produce. They produce music for famous acts.
And what about all those great open mic people? You know, the girl.
They're
with
all from Oklahoma,
Oh,
with the
right.
exception of Kate McCucci, who's a pal, and she wrote "Don't Call Me Whore in the Morning." I love that song.
I mean, these people must have been so excited at the opportunity, if they're local Oklahoma musicians, to do this.
Yeah.
Were you very selective? Did you audition dozens and dozens of people, and just for the 6 that were right?
Dozens and dozens, maybe?
Yeah, dozens and dozens.
So you basically were Simon Cowell.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I would go out, because I tend to like a cocktail now and again. I would hit the local scene and I would just start, you know, saying, you know, Bill Macy wants you. We had a local casting director, and they would come in, and Bill and I would sit there, and we'd try to be very, very bland, but people would roll these big tubas in and start playing, and it was just a bizarre scene. Really
Some
great.
of them were so wonderfully bad too. It's just, that guy that my character goes up and says, "I love it when women break your heart." Yeah. That song is so funny. He's a lovely guy, but that's really a bad song.
He came into the audition room and went for it, and he was really bleeding his heart out, and it
really
was
did.
terrible. We wanted to laugh, and I did actually, and Bill's assistant and I, who are good friends, really were laughing at him.
There is a moment where Lawrence Fishburne's character says to Billy's character, "It's so great what you're doing for that boy." And was there more to it in an earlier draft that didn't make the final cut as to what he was referring to, really, besides just a troubled past?
He's a smart lad.
There was another scene there. That was one of those meltdown days.
But ended beautifully.
Ended beautifully. We had shot some of that scene in the Guitar Emporium, and we were, after lunch, going to do another part of the scene when some actors said, "Why would I say that?" And everyone, the whole script fell apart. The scene that we had didn't make sense. It's amazing how that can happen to you. At any rate, over lunch, we talked about what's the essence here. And that's where that scene was born. And Billy played it beautifully.
It was so inspiring. I got to tell you, I don't think of it as negative at all. I like conflict like that. I really do. And the writers were there. Tyler, myself, Gary, Bill, Fish. It was beautiful in that scene. Billy. All of them took so much pleasure and confidence in all of us for being willing to say, stop, hang on a minute here. Wait a second, that's a really great point. And I think that scene really flew after that, and I think Fish's character really flew after that.
There's a story that I've read in an interview that you guys did that I would like the audience to hear, which is about the scene near the end with the radio block party where the band is about to perform, and you as director were a little worried about the cost. And how can you finish that story?
Yes, that block party, it's pretty big. We had that stage and all those speakers and all the vendors who had set up all of that stuff. There were trucks. It was expensive. And I said to our designer, he came up and he said, what do you think this scene cost? And I said, 50 grand? He said, no. And I said, 100 grand? He said, no. And I said, 25 grand? He said, no. I said, okay, it was free. He said, no. I said, I give up. He said, we made 5 grand. Everything was free, and he sold all the Grizzly beer, or Grizzly beer? Mustang beer. And they gave us 5 grand and a bunch of beer.
In putting this together, or in the release of it, or let's say at Sundance, for instance, when you premiered there, have you had the opportunity to reach out to families or people who are along the lines of the Billy and Felicity characters? Was that not something that you wanted to do or felt you should do?
2 or 3 people have come up and said, I met a young man who said, my sister was at Columbine. There have been a couple of others who were touched by it, and they came up. It's very hard to find these people. They disappear. And as much as I wanted to, after the film was made, it could so easily smack of exploitation, and we just haven't done it. It just...
Well, Bill's right. The smartest thing he has said on this entire press tour is that these parents aren't allowed to mourn. Families of the shooters aren't allowed to mourn. It's virtually impossible to find them. But also people that are victims because of the media age that we live in, whether it's somebody that was abducted and suddenly found, or whether they were involved in something like Columbine, they want to disappear because they don't want their life to be forever defined or connected to this incident that they didn't sign up for. And so it's very, very difficult to find them. And, you know, our film is really just pointing a camera at a corner of a story that, or a subject that we don't often think about, a parent getting that call. That's enough, really. It really is.
One final thing before we say goodnight. When you guys watch the film, do you watch it and think, wow, we did it? Or do you watch it and think, I wish I'd done this? Or how do you allow yourself to be when you watch it?
I've gotten to that place where I'm done seeing all the people that I know are hiding around corners. I'm done seeing the cuts before and after we made decisions. I'm done remembering things. I truly just sink in and enjoy this film, and I'm not promoting it. I truly believe that. I get emotional every single time I see Billy sing that last song. I get really, really fond of those three young boys in the band. I toe tap to every one of the songs because that's music that really inspires me. So I'm different. I really love it.
It's a brand new thing for me, this whole directing thing. So I'm perhaps a little more introspective to figure out what I did right, what I did wrong, what I want to do differently going forward, because I would like to do this some more. But luckily, with chops, with maturity, comes this knowledge that you gotta move forward. There's nothing more vicious than acting the scene in the car on the way home again, the way you wish you had done it. I mean, that way lies in madness. So somebody said, would you change anything in the film? And I said, well, more to the point, I would keep some stuff in the film. But it's out there, it's done, and I'm happy. It was a great experience for me, a great experience. It got me out of my comfort zone. I've fallen in love with the business all over again in a 14-year-old sloppy way, and I'm charged up like I haven't been for a long, long time. So I'm pleased as punch, and it can live on its own now.
Well, I look forward to the next one, too. Thank you so
Folks,
much, Bill
thank
and
you for
Keith. Have a
coming.
great night.